Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name is Gonzii and today we're going to be reacting to another Mr. Ballen video called It Was Standing in the Middle of a Lake. The Missing 411, for those who don't know what it is the name of the thousands and thousands of cases of people going missing in national parks in America, and some of them have really dark and bizarre stories. So today I'm going to be reacting to a Mr. Ballen video on the subject. He has a playlist on this channel with 22 videos if I'm not mistaken. I've chosen this one because I haven't watched. This is part 9. I haven't watched this one. I went on a binge from 1 to 8 and I'd stopped and I wanted to react to this one. So yeah man, let's go and check this one out. You guys know how much I love Mr. Ballen. So yeah, let's go.
If I told you that a college-age male went out drinking with his buddies and then wound up dead in a river, you might suspect that he got drunk and fell in. Accidental drowning. But what if I told you that there were dozens and dozens of these college-age males that are going out drinking with their buddies and then being found dead in rivers, and they're all being labeled accidental drownings, except many of them are found with little to no water in their lungs, and forensics tell us that they were actually alive for several hours, days, even months after the night out with their friends. One former police detective named David Paulides, who normally researches missing people in parks and forests, has begun researching these strange accidental drownings all over North America in his book called A Sobering Coincidence as part of his...
There's 9 books of the Missing 411, bro. It's a wild thing. Go search it. It's wild.
Before we get into today's stories, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you come to the right place, because that's
go subscribe to the boy and subscribe to my channel as well, bro, if you're there. Not subscribe. Come on, man.
Then I would encourage you to slightly overcook the like button's popcorn and subscribe to this channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of my weekly uploads. All right, let's get into today's stories.
Let's go, Mr. Ballen. Don't watch the form. Form's dead. Man, let's go. Todd Guy?
In 2005, Todd Guy was 22 years old. He lived in Michigan. He was an avid outdoorsman. He liked to go deer hunting. He loved to catch trophy fish, and he loved his family. And routinely, after he moved out of the house, he would drive on the weekends the 5 miles north to his parents' house and would spend lots of time with his parents and his extended family. On June 11th, 2005, Todd was visiting his parents at their house. He was there for dinner, and after dinner, he went back to his house. He checked in with his roommate, who was actually his cousin, and then following that, he drove to a local bar to get a few drinks. At about 9:30 that night, he decides to leave the bar and walk to this big orchard where there was this huge annual keg party that he and his friends would go to. He leaves his car at the bar, and he walks to this orchard, and it's perfect weather. All of his friends are there. He's having this great time, and he's there all the way until midnight. It was getting late. Todd felt tired, so he told a couple of his friends that he was going to head home. He was going to leave his car at the bar and he was just going to walk back to his house. The area that this orchard was in was right near his home, and so he knew this area extremely well, and it was only about a mile south to walk to his house. So all of his friends said bye to him. They said he seemed totally normal. They watched him walk south towards his house, and that was the last anybody saw of him. On his walk home, Todd would make 4 phone calls to friends and to family. And the last one he made was at about 12:45 in the morning, and it was to his friends, and he told them that he was in a field and he couldn't breathe. And they kept asking him, like, what are you talking about? And all they heard was very heavy breathing on the phone. They couldn't tell if it was his or if someone else had taken the phone and was now breathing into it. But then the phone comes out, and they tried calling him back,
wild.
and there was no answer.
Damn, that's weird.
The next day, when Todd did not show up at a family get-together, something he never would have missed unless he told them ahead of time, his family knew something was wrong. Plus, they had those strange phone calls the night before. They checked in with his friends. They said, yeah, we haven't heard from him. They went over to his house. He wasn't there. And so that's when they called the police. A massive search is kicked off involving canines and helicopters, and they're not finding anything. 3 weeks after Todd had gone missing, a couple was walking around this lake that was located north of the orchard where Todd was at that big keg party. And the wife looked out into the water and she said she thought she saw something bobbing. She couldn't tell what it was, but it was just this weird object that stood out to her. And she and her partner walked down to the edge of the lake and they looked out. And at first she thought it was a person who was swimming, just kind of bobbing up and down, because their body position was such that their shoulders and head were totally out of the water. So it was a strange sight, and they knew that it didn't seem right. So they called the police. Police show up, and it turns out that this person was Todd Guy, and they were deceased. When searchers found out out that it was Todd Guy in the
Damn,
lake,
rest
their
in peace,
reaction
bro.
was, no way. We have witnesses saying he was walking south after he left the keg party. Why is he in a lake way to the north of the keg party? It's in the complete
It's so
opposite
weird.
direction. Also, investigators were baffled at his body position because if he was a drowning victim...
Bro, I've seen the other 8 videos of this playlist of the Missing 411, yeah? It's stuff like this, all throughout, all stories. It's like, bro walked south, but he's found way north. Like, how people watched him go that way and he was found that way? It's wild stuff like that. Children disappear and they are found miles on another pathway, miles from where they were missing. I saw one story in this like second or first episode, one of the two. Go watch it. That a child, I think he was 2 years old. The child was found 20 miles from the place he disappeared. 20 miles. And it was like 2 days or whatever it was. And a man tried to do that same distance from where he disappeared to where he was found in 2 days, and he couldn't do it. It's wild stuff like that, bro. It's like it's weird stuff all throughout. Weird things happening, bro. It's a weird thing that people are not talking about enough, by the way.
But for him to be upright, shoulders
stuff
out
like
of
that
the
all
water,
the time.
it doesn't make any sense unless there's ice in the water to kind of prop him up. And there wasn't any ice in the water.
Makes
his
sense.
toxicology report showed that in addition to alcohol in his system, he had a very high dose of an antidepressant, something that he wasn't prescribed, and he didn't have any history of mental illness and had never been prescribed any antidepressant in his life.
That's weird.
His body was pristine. It did not have any of the hallmarks, the bloating you would expect from being in water for 21 days. In fact, it was concluded that it was impossible for his body to have been in the water for all 21 days that he was missing. His autopsy showed that he had almost no water in his lungs, even though his death was classified as an accidental drowning. When the news broke that this was an accidental drowning, family and friends pushed for a closer examination of this case because it wasn't adding up. And so a noted pathologist looked at all of the evidence and determined that at most, Todd had been in the water for maybe 3 days, and he had almost certainly been deceased when he was placed in the water. Which is why there wasn't any water in his lungs, and it's potentially why he was in that position that he was in, that upright position. So, as you'll see in all of these cases, why are we calling it an accidental drowning still? And where was Todd from the day he went missing for those 15 to 17 days before he was placed in the water? And what did he mean when he was on the phone the night he went missing and said he was in a field and couldn't breathe? And what was all that breathing in the background? Lots of questions on this one.
Yep. See, it's weird stuff like this all throughout the Missing 411
On January
cases.
25th, 2017, 23-year-old Dakota James was out bar hopping in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania with some buddies. At some point, he was tired, and so he decided to walk home. A CCTV camera has a clear shot of Dakota James after he left the bar, walking through a plaza. He's on his phone. No one seems to be following him. He seems like he's okay. He's not stumbling as he makes his way home. The next day, when he didn't show up for work, that was so out of character for him that his work immediately called the police, notified his parents, and a massive search is launched. But unfortunately,
was legit in his work. Shut up.
40 days after he had gone missing, his body was found in the Ohio River 10 miles away from where he had been missing. And the general theory became when he was walking home after that CCTV camera picked him up, he must have stopped by the water to relieve himself, fell in. The water was so cold at the time that he would have gone into shock and then basically been doomed. And then he drifted 10 miles to this location. But there's a couple big issues with that. Number one, in order to get from where he went missing to where he wound up, he would have had to go through this dam. And the dam is this very violent section of water where if a body were to go through there, it would get ripped to pieces. But when they found his body, it was clear he had not gone through a dam. In fact, his body was pristine. It looked like he hadn't been in the water for very long at all, despite 40 days elapsing since he had gone missing. When his toxicology report came back, he had alcohol in his system as well as a high level of GHB, which is a very powerful sedative. And like you'll see in many of these cases, he had no water in his lungs. But this was ruled an accidental drowning. The family was unwilling to
just because it was found in water.
So they went out and hired a world-renowned forensic pathologist named Dr. Wecht to come in and analyze all of the evidence, look at the autopsy report, and try to see if there's anything that was missed. And what Dr. Wecht finds is on Dakota's neck, there were ligature marks, as if rope or some sort of twine had been wrapped around his neck, which was later disputed by the other medical examiner who said that was dried blood, but Dr. Wecht swears there was ligature marks on his neck. Dr. Wecht also concluded that there was absolutely no way, based on decomposition levels, that Dakota was in the water for more than a couple of days, and he believed that he was dead or unconscious when he actually went into the water, which is why there was no water in his lungs. So it begs the question, if we believe Dr. Wecht, where was Dakota from the day he went missing until 37
it's
days
stuff
later?
Like this all throughout, bro. It's weird.
And again, why are we calling this an accidental
Yeah,
drowning?
why?
He didn't drown.
It's wild, bro, and it keeps
Lucas
me.
Holman was an
It keeps me
incredible
thinking
athlete.
all the time. Like,
6'3",
why not?
incredible at baseball, football, and
How do you
basketball.
rule that as
Primary
accidental
club.
drowning
In
with
fact,
no
he was so
water on
good
the
in high
lungs,
school
bro?
that
It's
he was
weird.
recruited to play at a Division I program.
But I'm not a
at the
doctor,
University
innit,
of
so.
Wisconsin. And in fact, he got a scholarship to play there. So he went to the University of Wisconsin. When he wasn't getting much playing time there, he opted to transfer early on in his career to lacrosse, which was a Division III school, but he figured he could get more playing time that way. It was at this time that he realized, you know what, I'm probably not going to play basketball professionally. And so he began orchestrating his life towards a career in finance. And in fact, was telling his family that once he graduated school, he was actually going to get a master's degree in business at the University of Wisconsin. On September 29th, Lucas and his friends are at this huge German festival, drinking a ton of beer, having a great time. At some point in the
Just
night,
a lads'
they
weekend,
transition
yeah?
to some of the bars downtown, and they're all having a great time. It's very crowded. But at some point in the night, Lucas disappears. No one knows where he went or who he was with, but Lucas was a big, confident guy. They figured, you know what, what's the worst that could happen to him? I'm sure he's fine. And so his friends ultimately just go home and don't think much of it. The next day, when no one could get in touch with Lucas, his friends and family called the police and said, you gotta look into this. We don't know where he is. The police went to the strip of bars that they had been bar hopping between, and they asked to see the security footage from the night before. And in a very unfortunate coincidence, all of these bars, their cameras were down. So they weren't able to get a glimpse.
All the bars,
Potentially
bro.
Lucas
Nah,
might have
see, it's
gone.
just
At
weird.
some point, someone
It's
came
weird.
forward and said that they knew where he was and that they had spent time with him outside of the bar, but it would later turn out that that person was lying, and they were actually charged with submitting false information to the police.
Damn.
On the 2nd of October, divers located Lucas's body. He was in 10 feet of water, about 20 feet from the edge. When they pulled him out, he didn't have any significant scratches or marks on his body to indicate some sort of altercation. It just looked like he had fallen in the water and drowned, and so his death was quickly ruled an accidental drowning.
Another
the
one.
initial medical report
No
said
DJ
that Lucas
Khaled,
had
bro.
fallen in the water and had been there for about 24 hours before he was found. But upon closer examination, it was determined that he had only been in there for maybe 8 to 12 hours.
Damn.
So he's only been in the water for a few hours. Meaning there had been at least a few days where he was not in the water and was alive. In the toxicology report, it showed that he had a high level of alcohol in his system, as well as, like Dakota James, a high level of this sedative called GHB. Also, it was noted that his belt buckle had been tightened way tighter than he normally wore it, and some people speculated that it looked as if someone else had tried to dress him, maybe after he was deceased or when he was unconscious.
Maybe.
And then perhaps the strangest part of the case is the day after Lucas had gone missing, his roommate, who had been in the room the whole time that Lucas and his friends had been out at Oktoberfest and going to the bars, he'd been home the whole time, he goes to bed and wakes up to an alarm. But it's not his alarm, it's Lucas's alarm. It's his phone going off that's underneath Lucas's bed. Lucas definitely had his phone while he was out, but somehow his phone got under his bed, but
How?
Lucas was not there and had never been there in the night unless he managed to sneak into the room
Maybe.
without waking up his roommate and place his phone under the bed and then leave again. It didn't make any sense. Police would never subpoena the phone's records to find out where it went that night, so we're left wondering how in the heck it got under his bed if he was never in there. And like all the other accidental drowning cases that we're looking at, where was Lucas from the time he went missing on the 29th of September and then wound up in the water at some point on the 2nd of October?
So weird.
He was alive for those few days and he wasn't in the water. So where was he? Some people say that these accidental drownings and all the others that are going on, these suspicious accidental drownings, are actually the result of a group of serial killers known as the smiley-faced killers, who leave smiley faces around the area where bodies are discovered. That's still very much up for debate. Other people say that there could be something paranormal going on.
Maybe.
Or this really is just a case of some drunk college kids slipping into the water.
No, because they don't have water in the lungs.
You decide what you think is going on.
Yeah, man, it's weird.
Hear in the comments what you think.
Yeah, bro. It's the Missing 411. There's 9 books on it. There's 2 documentaries, but they are very alien-like, very alienish. Don't watch those. The docs are worthless. Don't watch those. Read the books though. The books are really interesting because, bro, it's like thousands and thousands of stories. Different stories. You have very different stories in the same area. You have equal, like, word for word, bar for bar, like Soldier Boy would say, exact stories from different parts of the country. It's a wild stuff happening in the national parks in America, and people are just ignoring it. Like, thousands of people go missing every year in national parks. Thank you so much for watching the video, man. If you guys enjoyed it as much as I did, I love this type of content from Mr. Ballen, and I will continue to post if you guys continue to enjoy it. And yeah, man, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We are almost at 500. Please subscribe to the channel and share with your friends and family. And yeah, man, thank you so much once again. I hope you guys have a phenomenal day. But before you go, don't forget how we do on the channel, bro. Come on, keep God first as always. Drink water, go tell somebody you love them, man. If you're here, I don't know what to do, man. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. My name is Gonzii, and see you guys tomorrow. Goodbye.